Ya'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Welcome to Islamic Action TV. Once more with myself, Bilal Ali Hugh.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Welcome to Islamic Action TV with me, Mohammed Solomon.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Simon Marciniak and you're watching Islamic Action TV.
Brought to you by the famous and well-known Gorilla Mining Productions. So here we are again, once again in the studio, and we're going to do a little follow-up. Simon's brought the material about Muharram and the practices, the non-canonized practices that have crept into peoples, cultures, groups, MO, you know, their modus operandi, their MO,
the MO,
and querying those who do not just acquiesce and follow along. Yeah. So we want to explore the validity, the usefulness, the relevance, how pertinent are some of these practices.
Yeah.
So
beyond the mysticism, beyond the murder,
money and madness,
and the money and madness and money making machine.
Yeah.
So what we got for our listening audience today?
Well, it's interesting because if you remember our last talk, we went through a few key concepts. So we had this idea of canonization, standardization, frog marching was a
groupthink.
That was the other big word that we had.
Yes.
So there's a lot of concepts there to take away with us, and just by chance, accident, I had an approach from a client who, just a bit of background on him. He's an Iranian who's here as an asylum seeker in the UK. He came in 2013. He was involved in the 2009 Green Revolution in Iran. He made his offices available. He was a businessman. He made his offices available to pro-Musawi. If you remember, it was Ahmadinejad who got into power.
Yes.
And there was a strong pro-Musawi movement.
Yes.
Both before and after the elections. The problem started when Ahmadinejad was elected. The protests carried on. There was a dispute about the validity of those elections, and there was a lot of trouble around it.
People lost their lives, didn't they, over that whole thing?
Indeed, they did. Yeah. So this particular guy, who was very kindly given his permission to use his statement, which he used as part of his immigration claim. I'll keep his details as anonymous as I can. Yes. But a lot of what he says in here was relevant to what these concepts and what we were talking about last time. So I thought I'd share them with you today. As I say, a lot of the background to his case, he did suffer a lot during his time in Iran following the marches. He was held in detention. He claims to have been tortured. He's now he can barely walk now. He suffers some psychological injuries, and he's being treated for those here. So inshallah, hopefully the brother will see recovery. So I just read from his statement. So there's a heading: Arrest on the 27th of December 2009. I was caught up in a street demonstration against the regime on the 27th of December 2009, the national holiday of Ashura, the day of mourning for the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad and third Imam of the Shias. I was walking down Engalab Street near my apartment about 2 p.m. A large crowd of mourners approached. They were moving up the street in a procession, and I couldn't avoid the crowd. Others were taking the opportunity of the national holiday and the large crowds to mount a street demonstration against Ahmadinejad's regime. Anti-riot police appeared in their gear. Basij, this is the Iranian security service, in plain clothes also appeared. They began to arrest groups of protesters. I was arrested because they suspected me to have taken part in that demonstration. Our hands were tied together with plastic ties. They forced us to sit down on the pavement, waiting for a van to take us away. Other demonstrators attacked the police, creating a distance between those arrested and anti-riot police and Basij. Those arrested helped each other stand up. I found a knife to cut myself loose from the plastic tie. It was chaos in the streets, with groups of mourners and groups of demonstrators intertwined. He then goes on. He was then detained by the police, and in custody he was made to do this. They told me that my release was conditional on signing written undertakings as to my future conduct. I was given 3 undertakings to sign. I signed those understandings because I was anxious and desperate to be released. I was not given a copy of the undertakings, but they kept these on file. The first undertaking was I must never attend any meeting, gathering or demonstration that was anti-Islam or anti-regime. The second undertaking was that I must inform of any change of home or work address or of any travel outside Tehran. The third undertaking was that I must cooperate by supplying the regime with information which came my way about anti-Islamic or anti-regime activities. In other words, they wanted me to spy for them. I'll just mention one other occasion quickly, because I think it was also quite important. It was to be a national holiday on the 14th of April 2013, being the morning to commemorate the anniversary of the martyrdom of Fatima Zahra, daughter of the Holy Prophet. The banner posted outside my shop bore a picture of the Supreme Leader Khamenei with a picture from him of condolence to the nation over the passing away of Fatima Zahra. Within 10 to 15 minutes of my arrival, I took a chair out of the shop, put it on the pavement outside, stood on the chair and started to remove the banner. Using a broom handle, I poked a hole in the banner and tore it down, revealing the business sign outside my shop. While I was pulling down the banner, busloads of Basij were arriving to alight outside the Supreme Leader's house outside my shop to prepare for the ceremony. One of them saw what I was doing and an altercation began. While I was standing on the chair taking down the banner, a Basij came over and started swearing at me and insulting me. He was angry because I had pulled down a banner bearing a picture and message of the Supreme Leader. My actions were perceived as an insult to the Supreme Leader and thus to the sanctity of Islam.
Wow.
He threw a punch at me. I got down from the chair and began to swear at him too. I punched him back. A fight broke out between us. I lost my temper and control of what I was saying. I insulted not only the Basij but also Fatima Zahra and the Supreme Leader of Iran. Other Basij members arrived. My stop staff and others working in the business quarter came to see what was happening. In turn, they also got involved in this dispute. The fighting started on the pavement and moved onto the road. It was getting out of hand. One of the Basij held me round the neck and forced me to the ground in order to begin to handcuff me. And then it goes on. And then eventually what happened, he was charged with the crime, which is punishable by capital punishment, of insulting the regime and therefore insulting Islam and acting contrary to the
edicts.
The edicts of the Supreme
regime.
Leader. And that then prompted his departure from Iran. He was smuggled out of the country and he eventually ended up in the UK. So when I read that and then I reflected back on what we were talking about.
Yes, I can see the links.
All these ideas about standardization, about how the ritual has been canonized, really take on a really different focus. Because if you think about what Imam Hussein means to people, for example, we have Gandhi, don't we, who mentioned Imam Hussein in one of his speeches. Said, well, I learned from Imam Hussein about my peaceful demonstration, and of course he's credited with overthrowing the Raj in India.
Yes.
So you can see what's powerful.
And inspired Martin Luther King, didn't he, as well?
Sorry?
He inspired Martin Luther King's non-violence.
Exactly. So the various important historical figures, which have basically caused revolutions.
Yeah, domino effect. Yeah, you can see the connections.
So you can see why certain regimes would fear people taking on that mantle and using them for their own cause, even though they're expressing their warning, their own reflections of Imam Hussein in their own way.
Yes.
They could see that revolutionary activity as dangerous.
It's interesting, yes, because it's like, that's a fantastic point you're making. I mean, obviously, I wish this brother well, and I hope that he recovers from his injuries and the rest of it, and obviously the emotional trauma. But at the same time, obviously, I can't. If he said he said anything negative about Fatima Zahra, I can't excuse that, even though.
Never.
I understand.
No, I think the point is, I think he was quoting what somebody else said about him. So when he said I was.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
So it's a straw man then.
Oh.
He was taking down.
No, I think that's.
Someone said that
that's the problem. That's the problem with the statement. They said that I was insulting.
Right. Okay. Mashallah, we cut that up then. Because I was thinking.
No.
Kind of lost my bit of sympathy for me with it.
Well,
that's my red line on that one.
No, well noticed. No, I think that's what he was trying to say.
Cool.
I mean, his English.
Important clarification.
Very important.
Very clarification.
But I see Simon's main point, which is about how, for example, Imam Hussein's stance is used by the regime to support the regime, but people who similarly may use the same stance now to highlight the inaccuracies in the regime or the issues with the regime, limitations of the regime, and they're seen somehow as being anti-Islamic and anti-Imam Hussein stance. But these people, from what I saw in this Green Revolution, were not violent revolutionists.
No.
It was peaceful demonstration, and it was a vote. There was an opposition party, and people wanted to, vote for this party and to also help to change the course of the government, because some people weren't happy with Ahmadinejad's rule. And many Iranians I spoke to told me that they felt he was an embarrassment to Iran. They felt he was a clown. They felt that his statement about Israel should be put that should be eradicated or put in the dustbin of history. That we understand the context he meant it in, but he didn't voice it in the right way. And he, as a statesman, he seemed to have brought a more embarrassment to Iran. So people naturally felt in the country, well, let's put a new government in. That's what democracy is about in Iran, I assume. I imagine, and they wanted to change the regime. Why is it against Islam? I remember I found it horrendous that some of the scholars were jumping up in the Majlis in Iranian parliament, saying those who go against this regime are going against the Deen, and therefore they should be hanged. When does the Iranian government get twinned with the Deen and Islam? And if you don't like Khamenei, you don't like Islam. Where does that come into it?
Yeah, but it has.
What say you?
Well, from their point of view, it has to be that way in order to be people under control. Because if you're using the messaging on seem to promote your own cause, that's a big problem, isn't it, for them? Because then, and then you start to wonder that, well, is everything we are all the sort of canons of Ashura, the walk to Najaf, the walk from Najaf to Karbala, is that part of the same ritual that we're made to follow, which we're made to comply with? Are we not allowed to
express, we're not allowed to, or we're questioning about expressing our commitment
to give our own way, to give our own identity, our own identity to that. That is my.
I don't agree with that. One of the things which I picked up on this week was I was when I went to Mecca and I met the original black Arab Medina. Medina. I met the original black Medina Arabs, and they were Shia. So the oldest group of Arabs who was on at the Prophet's peace upon time and had followed what the Prophet said about Prophet alayhi salam, they were Shia. But the thing about them, they're in Saudi Arabia, they've been heavily oppressed, they're in ghettoized area, and they're not Africans, they're black Arabs, right? Original Arabs, right? Now the thing is that the head of the community now was taken over. His father previous to him had said to him, whatever happens, and be careful that you're in Saudi Arabia. If Iran comes to you and they want us to give you money and funding, be very particular about this. Do not take on their dress, do not take on their folklore, or don't try and emulate them in any way. Unfortunately, I was in this community. I saw, went to the masjid, there's pictures of, the Karbala scene. The faces have got this white light on them, but their hands are all white. You can't see the face, but their hands are white. So they're telling you that the Imam Hussein is white. Now, if you've got original Arabs over there, who obviously look like Imam Hussein, these are black Arabs, right? And then you've got now these Iranians who are pale coming over there and telling them, they're now not just telling them how to reenact Ashura, but they're creating figurines for them and images that they now have to buy into. Now, if these Iranization. So if this community now wants to go to Iran just to do Ashura, they have to do it the Iranian way. They're not going to allow them to just, because if they're already inside Arabia, they've already gone over there and they're sort of trying to change how they dress and how they look at Shia Islam. Imagine, these guys had the original Shia Islam as such. These Iranians have only recently got into it, but they're now defining how it should look. This is what the Falasha Jews did. The Jews did with the Falasha. They took them from Ethiopia. These guys been Hebrews for thousands of years, Israelites, and then the white Jews, the pale Jews from Eastern Europe, started telling these dudes, your books are not the right books, innit? You've got to now dress like this is authentic Judaism.
Call that colonial.
Yeah. So I think the Muharram, they've so created this one concept of it that you are now. It's almost like the Nicene Council.
Yeah,
we're gonna define. We're gonna define a concept of Jesus, and anything outside that concept, like Barnabas' concept, we throw it out. It's heretical.
But that's exactly.
There were numerous gospels, but then they became a King James version.
Canonized. Yeah. The Arian
is a man-made canonization.
But what does the Quran say about this? You go to Bani Israel, when Musa departed, they created the sacred calf,
Yes, aye.
So they started worshipping that, and
That's
when
right.
Moses came back,
That's
I was
right.
just looking at the Quran a minute ago just to check on this, and they say this is the God, this is our God, and the God of Musa.
Wow.
So it's how the cow is how we worship God. It's
Teach on
mediated
that.
through
Yes.
the worship of the sacred God.
Yes. So
So
is that where the twinning comes in then? Like the regime is Allah, the regime is Islam.
Yes, exactly.
Khamenei is Islam, right?
So in
Like
order,
the cow, like the sacred cow in a way.
yeah, so in order to be Islamic, you need to behave in this particular way.
Wow.
So you can see the precedents for this sort of behaviour in the
Wow.
Quran's teaching.
So just being aware of the time, I was wondering, how do we, as Muslims who do not want to fall for, I say we, the nahnu is a big nahnu, not us sitting here, but for those who feel that they want to employ critical thinking, they want to get out of groupthink or not be a victim of groupthink. How can you go forward? How can you approach this type of pressure, you could put it?
I think it's about just realizing that Ashura is an event in history, phenomenal as it was, of tremendous importance to the world. It's like a national heritage. Like the pyramids are, it's a world history.
International heritage.
International.
Yeah.
Not just national.
National,
International.
exactly.
Yeah.
And no one owns that narrative, And however, each community, each nation feels the need to imbibe what he did and stand up for what is wrong and fight oppression.
Stand for what is right.
Exactly what is it? Nahi anil munkar.
Enjoying the good and forbidding the evil.
Then they're totally free to do that. They're totally allowed to do that. If you want to go to, if you want to go Karbala, why should you have to accept the talking horse, or the man dressed up in a onesie in a lion suit, or the people dressed up as crocodiles? And why did they have to create these little images, of we went there,
But there are people who shout you down for criticising.
For criticising
people who dress up in a onesie.
Yes, certain sheikhs think that it's acceptable for someone to put on a lion suit onesie.
But what are they doing? They're protecting a sacred image of the event, which you can't go outside.
And then you lose the essence of the event.
Yes.
You've lost the essence of the event.
You get problems like this. Where
Exactly.
People said would promote it in their own way, and then are convicted, of being acting anti-Islamically.
So this is part of the thought police again. Every community should be able to emulate, that sacred event to the extent that they feel they need to, because it's about evil and somebody standing up to evil and fighting oppression. This was the month of Muharram. This is the month that means the forbidden month, the month where you don't kill anybody or commit any atrocity. And Yazid went and killed, may Allah curse Yazid, went and killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And murdered and slaughtered him. So this is, and as you said, it's inspired people all over the world. So the regime can't say, well, we now have the monopoly on it, and you guys who are the protesters, you are the Green Party, you can't do it. We know all the arguments. CIA created the Green Party, and it's all lies. It's all the Westerners, isn't it? Any dissent in Iran, it's got to be the Westerners' fault. Like in Animal Farm, whenever the animals are upset with the pigs, you've been influenced by the humans again, isn't it? And we don't want the humans to come back and take over. So it's the same Orwellian thought, police nonsense. But we're not here to follow your regime. We're here for Deen.
But one thing I should stress, we're not here to undermine Iranians anyway.
We look to Iran, haven't we?
We're just highlighting problematic issues within this area, which is addressing.
Yeah, so I think that's very important that we have that disclaimer there, because it's not an attack on Iran. It's not an attack on the fact that we know Iran is under tremendous pressure by the enemies of Islam and freedom to try and destroy the regime and destroy Iran. We're not getting into any of that. What we're talking about is Muharram. We're talking about how we as Muslims want to get involved in Muharram, and we want to represent it. And we feel that we got to also look at the critical thought around it. Critical thought, how important it is for us as Muslims to relate to it, and how it feeds into the whole of the world. Let's not just make it a Muslim event. As you said, Gandhi, you mentioned Gandhi, This is a world event. Anybody who fights for freedom against oppression, you are following Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Jesus himself stood up, and said, when he went on Palm Sunday, very similar situation with him. He wasn't going to just be oppressed and let people be oppressed. He wanted to bring them a message of freedom. So we know that Islam is not about compromising with evil. And there's people out there who've died to not compromise with evil. People are still up and says, you know, and we're not going to die.
There's a clear line. There's a clear line.
Yes.
And enough is enough.
Exactly.
I think the takeaway message for today definitely has to be that the story of Imam Hussein, the legacy of Imam Hussein, is a great event and a type of meta history that, you know, we see the dynamics repeating itself, and then there's lessons that we can all learn from that. Also, you know, as Muslims we're equal, but I heard some Muslims are more equal than others, but that's another discussion. And ultimately, it's about freedom of thought.
Yes, I think so. I think it's about each nation. When you become Muslim, have a totally open view of Islam. Don't go on a particular narrow-minded view of it, and understand that you can represent the deen how you feel represent it. You don't have to follow this sheikh telling you what to do. It's not about that. It's about your personal relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So however you feel you want to, you know, represent Muharram, do that in your own way. You don't have to go out where you don't have to accept all of the stories and the baggage and the fairy tales that go with it. If you want to, fine. But don't force it on people to be in a room and you have to cry because everyone else is crying. You know, if you feel pressured, if I don't cry, somehow I'm a bad person. No. In their culture, they can cry like that at the drop of a hat. And they can be smoking a cigarette. 1 minute, the man can say, oh, Imam Hussein, drop the cigarette, start crying. And after this finish, pick it up and start smoking again. Now, they can do that. Fine, power to them. I can't do that because that's not how I was brought up. By respect other people who can cry at the drop of a hat.
But we're not going to be co-opted into this way of thinking.
No.
Particularly if it serves an agenda which is to the detriment of, you know,
this is what you just quoted is real. This is affecting real human beings. Yeah, people have to flee their countries because a simple event, a Imam Hussein's event, which is supposed to be something which is showing that you're standing up for oppression, then you're getting kicked out of your country, or you're getting touched, or you feel the need that you have to flee. It's a terrible situation to be in. You know, and you're just merely wanting to take part in Imam Hussein's procession.
Only because of time. It's been a pleasure, but the time has gone, as you know. It's like that. It's like that. So the revolutionary thought has begun. We're going to be here next time. Until next time, stay safe. Remember to subscribe, or remember to like, or even dislike.
Remember the comments we got.
And make the comments.
The email. Then
come forward on a Gmail.
Freedom of speech.